Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I opted to start everything a little bit later tonight because of the class that's before mine. So how is everyone? I'm with you, Tammy. I saw you going to put you yawn. I'm the same way.
I'm
How are you, Josh?
There it is. I couldn't figure out how to put the mic on. Just another day.
They all kind of look the same anymore, don't they?
Yes, ma'am.
We'll give it just a few more minutes and see who else is going to join. So how's everybody's classes going? Good, good, great, fantastic, wonderful.
good.
Not as good as face-to-face.
Right.
Except we don't have to drive.
That's true.
Right?
I enjoy that.
Yeah.
I do too. I enjoy the not driving part, but I wish there was a way we could be in the same room and not drive.
Yeah.
Gas alone's worth it for me.
Yeah. My goal is to someday have augmented reality. There's one, Houston, I think it's Houston and Texas State. They have a project going in the social work department where they have, let me do this, where they have augmented reality. So it's like you're really right there all together, but you're not. So that would be cool. Anybody have any specific questions for administration, social work and administration?
I just have a real quick statement,
Okay.
I guess. I saw that you hadn't opened up a link as far as us being able to upload our videos for so I just uploaded mine with the paper. I didn't know.
And that'll work, and that's fine. And actually, I was going to go back and make sure that would work, because in that way, individually, I can see them and they'd be right there. So yeah, if you did that, that's perfect. Thank you. No, I started working on classes today, and then I got called away, but I've actually spent the last week concentrating. I'm trying to write a grant for our robot research, and it's killing me. It's killing me. If we get it, it's a long shot. It's like a $5 million grant over 5 years. So if we get it, but we're working with the consultant on it, and it kind of turned into something really cool, but at the root of it is using our assistive robots. But the grant is NSF, which is the National Science Foundation, and they want to broaden participation of women in STEM, science, technology. So we are doing, the title that we've come up with is put the girl into STEM. And so we're going to target women who have chosen a helping career and show them how going into science and technology and engineering directly with a focus on the human services side, like we're doing with our robots and making that human connection, that they can actually have those STEM careers and still be in the helping field. So we'll see, kind of a different approach, but it's kicking my butt right now. So that's why I'm a little behind on my classes. Sorry, y'all got put aside.
I'm glad that's you and not me.
It's fun. I'm enjoying it. I really am. It's just, I wish that's all I had. If I could just concentrate on just that. But we're working with School of Social Work out of San Angelo State. We're working with Care in Kind, which is the Alzheimer's Association for Greater New York. And we're working with Connected Living, which is up north. And I forget where her office actually is, but they provide technology, software, all the suites for like Alexa and everything for aging elderly individuals in their homes and in nursing facilities. So it's kind of fun. So there you go. See, I'm writing a grant this semester. Y'all be writing a grant. I'm writing a grant. I'm right there with you. Maybe we'll all get funded. So nobody have any specific questions right now about the course?
I had a quick question. So
Okay.
for the grant proposal, are you giving us a rubric or something?
Yes, there will be. I thought it was uploaded, but if it's not, I will. It's basically kind of gives you an outline, and then I also have a PowerPoint on it, but it kind of gives you an outline of what needs to be included in that grant. So I will get that up. Let me make a note of that.
Okay, thank
And
you.
make sure. When you write grants, it depends on what you're writing for, and it depends on who you're writing to, and they can differ widely. So, like the National Science Foundation or any large federal grant, they're much more extensive than if you were going for a private foundation. So when you actually go to the grant that you are going to select, Tina, yours may look very different from Tammy's, and Tammy's may look very different from Rebecca's, and Rebecca's may look very different from Verlisa, because they all have different requirements and they require different components and different structures. So you have to really pay attention to that. For the actual proposal that you'll be graded on, you're going to follow the rubric I give you. So you may have two different documents. You may have the one that you're going to submit for the grant, and then I may be requesting a couple of different items than what they request, okay? That way everybody has kind of the same for the paper part to be graded on. But what I ask for is things that you need to be knowledge about, even if you don't have to include those direct sections in your grant. So it's not wasted work, okay? But that way it's a little bit more even in terms of grading for everybody, because like
I see.
grants may be 1 or 2 pages. Some grants may be 10 or 12 pages. It just depends on the grant, the funding, the source, the requirements. So I'll clarify that, but when I put that rubric up, that rubric is going to be what you're going to turn into me for a grade. Your actual grant that you write to submit may look a little bit different from that. Okay? We'll clear that up. Tammy, you look confused.
All I'm thinking is, whoa, 2 papers.
Not really, because what I ask you to do, if you do mine, then you can just pull out whatever components they need. Yeah. So, and you'll have more of a background of what you need to write it. So it'll be a better grant, even if they don't ask for them specifically in the way I do. So think of it as one paper that you can extrapolate from and pull out what you need to submit for a grant. Is that better? Okay. So this week's topic, actually in the book, if we go along with the book, we've looked at the broader issues related to supervision and administration, the theory, the structure, things like that. So this week it kind of brings it back down to some of the day-to-day things, and it talks about job analysis and job descriptions, writing job descriptions, and the importance of that. So when you read that, think about reference back to where you're doing your placement or where you've worked, what your job description looked like. Did your job description really reflect what you did on a daily basis, or did what you ended up doing on a daily basis in whatever job that was, did it fall under that catch-all of other duties as assigned? Have y'all seen that in job descriptions? It's got all the job description and then it says other duties as assigned. Have you ever ended up being under other duties as assigned more so than in the job description? That's an indication that job description needs to be rewritten. There needs to be a job analysis done, and it needs to be rewritten. Because that's kind of a running joke is, you're going to end up there. It's other duties as assigned. If you're leading an agency, if you're developing your own agency, you're going to have to be able to, nobody else is in, you'll have to be able to really think about the job positions you're going to need. And as an agency develops over time, those job positions may change. One of the podcast I'm going to have you listen to towards the end when it talks about, we talk about how to fire people. And one of the things that she talks about, she's an entrepreneur, and one of the things she talks about is sometimes when you start a business or you start an agency and you have a job role and you have a job description and it's very well defined, as that agency goes, that job may not need to be there anymore. It may, it may have eliminated itself over time, and that may be a reason that you need to eliminate that, or a reason you need to change that and do an analysis. So job descriptions shouldn't be static. They should represent the position that you need, but they should be reviewed annually to make sure that they're accurate and they haven't changed. At the university, annually when I do evaluations for faculty and staff, that's one thing I have to check is, did I review the job description and does it need to be revised? Because if it needs to be revised, then I have to go back through human resources and we have to work on that. Or can it stand the way it is? So annually, those things need to be looked at, something you always need to be thinking about. If you're working under a job description that doesn't describe what you're doing on a daily basis, you might need to have that conversation with your supervisor, because it will impact how you're evaluated. It'll impact how you evaluate people. It can impact job security. It can impact promotion. It can impact services and things. So that's what this chapter particularly talks about, is the nuts and bolts of that, doing that job analysis, creating those job descriptions, and then how you use those job descriptions to advertise for the positions. In the discussion part, I put up a kind of an engagement activity for the next couple of weeks. This is real world, and this is something that is really happening. And because of the abrupt movement to remote work because of the pandemic that happened like back in March and has continued, it's continued in all kinds of social services, social service agencies, everywhere. Think about how those job descriptions might need to be changed, or how they may need to be rewritten to meet the new environment, to do an analysis of it. We've ran into some of that in our department, especially in terms of how our administrative assistant job descriptions are written, because it's a different environment and it's an abrupt change. So that's a real world thing. If you were running an organization or an agency right now, you might at 6 months into this be looking at that and say, okay, how do I change my job descriptions? How does the roles change so that we need to rewrite these for the future? So you could be facing that right now. Has anybody encountered any of that in their day-to-day life? How your job has changed, how the expectations has changed?
When I was in internship, sorry.
Go ahead.
When I was in internship, I started off, I'm at the Salvation Army and working there now, but I started in the domestic violence shelter in January. And then when COVID hit in March, everything went to food pantry because there was such a great need for food pantry. And matter of fact, the numbers in our domestic violence shelter decreased significantly. And it's all because women, or men and women, were stuck with their abusers, and the abusers are home all day and they're not able to reach out and call. So the job description changed. I think I realized then how flexible I could be, because I was able to just go around to all the different programs and just jump in where needed. So yeah, it definitely changed.
Yeah. So it did. The roles and the expectations that you were doing changed.
Absolutely.
Rashonda, did you have that experience?
Yes, I did. I work for the juvenile department in the substance abuse unit, and my job is going to schools and home and doing sessions with the clients and the families. So in March, all of that stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been going to homes, I haven't been going to schools, and I'm working from home. So what's going on now with the agency, they're thinking about, do we even need this building? Because the counselors really can work from home,
Mm-hmm.
do Zoom meetings with the clients instead of, so they're restructuring everything right now. Because
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's real world. It's really something to think about. I know one of the things that we had to do is previously at the university, if anybody worked from, very few worked from home, but there's a alternative work, it's AEW, alternative work environment or something like that, that has to be completed for somebody to be working remote, not working at the physical university. And part of this runs into safety and security and confidentiality, because now we're at home, so we're accessing computers and we're accessing confidential information through our computers at home. So they had to actually arrange for safety, confidentiality, you know, how to maintain that, and what that looked like. So in that abrupt change, we all went home, including all staff, faculty, staff, and everybody. And we're all working from home. So now we're trying to get caught up on that as to what does that look like to be able to maintain the safety. The other issue is when you work in a physical environment, you open the office at 8 a.m. So somebody's there to turn on the lights, open the office at 8 a.m. and you don't close the office until 5 p.m. And it's a matter of somebody being physically there throughout the day. And when the job changes to become remote, it becomes more about deliverables and less about the time frame. So you have to manage that too. And so in working with the administrative staff that we have, working with Vicki and Janice and Wendy, what I told them was, you have to answer your emails and you have to answer your phone, because they're our first line of contact there in the office. But as far as reports go, as far as, you know, the other things go, if it takes you a half a day to do it, then it just takes you a half a day to do it. It's not a matter of punching in at 8 and punching out at 5. So the focus becomes very different. If you're providing therapy and you're doing clients, then it comes out about how many billable hours you do. So it may not be 8 to 5. Maybe you can be more flexible for your clients and their circumstances, especially if they have kids at home that are using the computers and are being taught. So maybe you're going to do your sessions from 1 till 8 in the evening. And so you have to have ways to manage all of that. And those job descriptions and the expectations and the roles are going to change in terms of how you measure productivity. How do you award somebody for going above and beyond, all of that. So that job description becomes really important. And we've been faced with it. We've been, an external factor is playing into our agencies and changing the way we do business. So we have to think about those things. And then you have to think about those things as a leader. Any questions or comments on that? Some ways it can be really kind of straightforward. Some ways you can get into some legal issues if you're not careful. If you're a large enough agency and you have human resources support, then you need to certainly, you know, go through human resources to make any changes or whatever. If you're a smaller agency, you need to have some consultation for human resources law and how you can make sure that you protect your employees and protect your agency, because you have to be thinking about that also too, not just the clients and the services, but your employees and your agency. You know, and how you, the physical environment, you know, the protections for the physical environment. What's the liability for the different agencies when they're bringing individuals in? You know, if an individual becomes exposed to COVID and becomes ill, that's still not been fleshed out on that part. So there's a lot of gray areas there. So that's a real world thing. So I just ask that for your engagement part, that y'all kind of chat with each other, however that looks like. Like if you were sitting in class, I'd put you in little groups and have you talk about it. But since we're not sitting in class, I'll just have to have you do it. You know, and think about through some of that, what that would look like and how you could take the opportunity to not have to change, but take the opportunity to make things better. Just like Rashonda had talked about, they're now looking at, do they really need that building? Do they really need the expense of that physical space? Can they shift their resources to invest it more maybe in their employees and not have to invest it in a physical place. That's happening a lot across the nation, actually, where they're looking at not going back to physical spaces.
On the assignment, Dr. Judd,
Mhm.
are we, when we submit, provide a one-page paper with bullet points of changes you would make? Is that gonna, if I'm in a meeting with two others, are we each going to be doing our?
Just one.
particular- Okay.
Just one. Yeah,
Okay.
just submit one. And I didn't want y'all to get into like a big narrative paper or anything. Just put
Okay.
down some bullet points of what you think, you know. I just want you to think through it, just to think through, you know, the things that you might be thinking about in those situations, or something that you've encountered. Like I said, because it's about as real world as you get on that part. So yeah, I just wanted you to just apply some of those thoughts or concepts and think about it. You know, the other thing that we are having to do when you work for the state, there's a lot of restrictions in terms of job searches, how job searches happen, the postings, the job descriptions and how they're posted. They have to be posted for so long. When you do interviews, you have to have a committee, and you can't ask questions other than what the Human Resources has actually already approved of. We cannot Google candidates. We can't try to find anything. The only information we can have is what we have on the candidates and what the candidate tells us. And we always had a process where we would bring the candidate to campus to interview them. Well, guess what? We can't do that anymore. So we're having to do all of our interviews through Zoom. And so that's a very different experience too, in terms of interviewing potential candidates through an electronic, because we're missing out on a lot of things. You know, we used to spend the whole day with them. They would come, they spend the day at the university, they do different things, we take them to lunch, and now it's all being done through Zoom. So that's also impacting the way the job happens. Yeah, and it's different times. Different times.
So if you narrow it down to two candidates where you are now, and you guys were like, well, we want to, I mean, I know like with scholarships and, you know, students that are looking at athletics, they'll have so many, they'll go look at their social media accounts to see how they've managed that. You guys can't do that?
We cannot, and that's a controversy. And actually our previous dean, I don't know if any of y'all ever met Dr. Letzering, but our previous dean was also a lawyer. He was an educational lawyer. That was his background. And we had a situation that came up that the search committee, we were interviewing for a faculty position, and this was about 3 years ago, and we interviewed these people for a faculty position, and this one particular person we interviewed was not selected. We just didn't select him or whatever. Well, come to find out, after that interview, he actually was brought up on charges before the licensure board for having sex with a client. And we know that because Mr. Brumley's on that committee, right? The ethics committee at the board. So this person appeared, and he's like, wait a minute, I think we've interviewed you. So my comment back to Dr. Letzering about that was, you know, that's not something that's going to show up on a background check. It's not necessarily he didn't do it. It wasn't an illegal thing. It was an unethical thing. He lost his license and things like that. If we're not allowed to Google, and if we're not allowed to search out somebody, then we've not done our due diligence. And if we were to bring somebody like that to campus, what would be our liability? Because our HR department tells us we cannot do that. If we do that, they will call the search failed, and we have to start all over. So there's some conflict about that, because we should be able to do due diligence and make sure that the person that we're hiring doesn't have anything back there that could bring liability to the campus or to our students, and it may not show up on a background check. So that's not something we would have caught if we had hired that individual. if we weren't allowed to Google or search or something like that. So the argument has become, well, we don't do it because it has to be fair and objective, but if we identify a potential candidate, then human resources will do that. But they may not know what to look for, you know, so it separates that out. They may not know. So that is still in a quandary right now in terms of especially state jobs. A lot of private corporations do that. Mr. Brumley was telling us that he has a friend. I want to say she's a manager for, I want to say it's for a bank. That's right. It was for a bank. And she had a teller position open. And she had like 85 applicants for a teller position. So the first thing she did was she went to all their Facebook accounts. And if they had posted anything politically incorrect, grammatically incorrect, rude or anything like that, she screened them out at that point. They never even got past that point. So if you're a private organization, you can do that. If you're a state organization, you can get into some trouble for doing that. So that's another area that has to be determined. The other thing that has to be, when you're thinking about job descriptions and you're thinking about remote work now, and consider it, whether it be at an agency that's providing clinical services, whether it be faculty or whatever, because it's remote, are you going to hire somebody that lives 500 miles away? Or are you still going to want to hire somebody that's in the geographic region? That's something that would need to be built into that job description and the expectation of that job description. If you go on to Glassdoor or LinkedIn and you start looking for different kind of jobs, those will be specifications. And even if it's a remote job, it'll tell you you have to live within so many miles of this place. Because if you're dealing with clients in a rural area, you don't want a therapist who's in New York. So when you're talking about even remote positions, you have to build some of that into your job description so that you can hire appropriately and not get yourself into a bind. So you have to look at different states. Do you have to be licensed in this state if you're living in another state? So all that comes into account when you're doing that job analysis and job description, even for the remote work. Especially for the remote work. Are you expected to be on campus? I looked up in Walden. I was curious about how they handled their faculty who taught online. So I looked on Walden like I was applying for a job. And they require that you be available to come to campus like once or twice a semester at minimum, even if you're teaching remotely. So the job descriptions have changed now. You have to think about those things. Other thoughts or comments? Ooh, it's late. Y'all are quiet, aren't you? I know. I was like, am I going to be able to stay up till 7:15 tonight? I don't know if I'll make it or not.
I was just curious that I understand that you're not allowed to look up, future employees in social media, but you can, right? And not legally, but who will go to see if you just go and, just the urge to just, let me just go and see once this person.
Is that an ethical dilemma, Teeny? Is it? I mean, if I'm on, okay, let me tell you this. If I'm on a search committee, because at the university, the rules, and again, I work for a state agency, so you have to consider that because that does have different rules also. Because we have state funds that pay us. But, so I'm on a search committee. And as a member of that search committee, I have access to all the candidates because I have to screen them. Mm-hmm. So if I were to go through and I were to say, well, I'm up one night, I'm just going to just Google these people and see what I come up with. Is that going to bias my ratings on them in that search committee? Because the whole idea behind having a search committee is bringing in objectives so that you don't have the bias, that you don't have the favoritism, that you get the most qualified person.
But if somebody is trying to present themselves as something else which they're not, the social media like is a platform where it's all there. I mean,
I'm not arguing that. What I'm arguing is the legality of it, because say we hire somebody, we hire one
you will
person.
know nowadays if you know a person more.
We hire one person because I Googled somebody and saw that is not somebody we want. So I scored them way, way, way down. Okay. So we hire this one person, so that other person potentially files a lawsuit because they feel like they were more qualified, and that somehow comes out. Then what could happen? It happens. It happens.
Yeah, it actually happens a lot.
It happens a lot. I was not on this search committee, so I'm not going to tell you anything more about it. But with some of the candidates, I did do some Googling. And one particular candidate actually had won more than one lawsuit against every previous employer she'd been employed by. Because the lawsuits, they're there. You can find them. They're public. They're up there. And this particular candidate actually sued a search committee and won in one of her previous lawsuits.
Is there a way for them to find out if you search them? Yeah, because
Exactly.
why I ask that is because I know on some of these platforms that a lot of these kids use, whenever you go and say, for instance, you're looking at their page, it'll let them know you're looking at their page. It'll say so-and-so is viewing your page. So if you go to a platform like, you were saying, and do a search, is it a way for them to find out that you've done that search?
It's going to actually depend, and it's going to depend on, it would actually have to take a lawsuit, and it would have to be introduced into court. Because, and again, it varies, but I'm talking from a state perspective because I'm a state employee. All of my email is public record. Public record. It can be requested at any point in time. Because it's the Information Act, Freedom of Information Act. So any of my searches on my computer that's work-related, on my work-related computer, can actually be requested through the Freedom of Information Act because I'm a state. We've been cautioned, and I was cautioned by our previous IT person, because you can forward your email to your phone. You can do it through the PLP, that link, and so your email actually comes to your phone. If I were to do that and there were a public information request for my email, I have to turn over my phone on that because I'm a state employee. So my email don't come to my phone. That's why I don't get y'all's email till I get on my computer, because it ain't coming to my phone. I always tell the faculty, I always caution them about that. I'm like, they're going to find your embezzlement and your porn and all that stuff when they go after that phone. I'm just saying. So we have to be cautious. It depends on who you work for. But from the state agency perspective, because it's state money, because we're paid through taxpayer money, then we have a different standard that we have to maintain. So we have to be careful and not violate those ethical and legal aspects when we're actually doing job searches. That's also why our job descriptions have to be I can't just write a job description and post it. It has to go through the system, it has to fall into a template, it has to go through HR, it has to be approved, and all of that. So it depends on the agency, but you can get yourself if you're looking at human resources law, you're going to need some type of consultation for that if you're not at an agency that's large enough to have that type of consultation. Otherwise, you can find yourself in some pretty precarious situations. especially if you want to or need to terminate an employee and you don't go through a proper termination process. And if their job description is not accurate, if they're down their other duties as assigned, then you really don't have a leg to stand on if you're trying to terminate them for something within their job description. So that's why these are important aspects to it, not only to define what the role is and the expectations are, but it's also for performance, and it's also for if you need to terminate somebody. Whew, y'all didn't know all that went into job descriptions, did you? Job analysis and job descriptions. I mean, I'm telling you what, humans can make everything so complicated. And if you're in academia, it's like 10 times more complicated. A bunch of academics sit around and just see what they could come up with to make it more complicated, I think. Instead of making it streamlined. Any other questions or comments about that? That's pretty much the topic this week in the book, is the job description and job analysis, and posting job searches.
Have you heard about a website called ONET?
Called what?
ONET?
I have not.
Yeah, it's actually a website by the Department of Labor. It actually lists all the training, tasks, and job descriptions for every job and industry in the nation.
Really?
Yes, and it has things that all employees should have in there, legal aspects, and everything.
That's awesome. I'll have to look that up. That would be a great resource, especially for anybody who is starting out with their own agency, you know, and needs to write those job descriptions, because you can Google and find some, but if you actually have a good resource like that, that would be awesome.
Yeah, and it's an awesome tool. It not only does for employees, it's for actually for job seekers also. It lets you know what jobs are paying, a certain percent in what area, by county, by state, by local area, what you expect to do as far as job tasks, job descriptions, and everything.
Wow, that's an amazing resource. Will you shoot us an email with a link to that?
Yeah, just ONET Online. It's built by the Department of Labor. It's an ONET Online. Working in the workforce, working at the workforce commission, you'd be surprised how many people don't know about that, but they spend
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Lynn,
Yeah.
how often is that updated?
It's like at the moment.
Okay, wow.
Yes, it's a huge database of job training tasks. And as a part of that, we have to teach kids. It's about My Next Move. It teaches them what jobs will be around at what age, let's say they expect to have a 3-bedroom house, 2-bath, or a car. It tells you what jobs they need to be looking for, what areas by county, state, you know, everything.
Wow.
What's the website again, Lynn?
ONET, ONET. We use it to build job descriptions, training plans, you know, the likes.
Wow, that's a great resource. I had no idea that even existed.
Yeah.
I'll be on that later tonight. I got to figure that one out. That's great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yes.
Anybody got anything else?
Dr. Judd, looking ahead at that social media presence assignment on the LinkedIn and Instagram, and I think Twitter were the 3 accounts. Is that where we are today, or is that us looking ahead? And are we actually physically going to I have a LinkedIn account on what I do now. So is it what we're currently doing now? Okay.
It can be. It can be what you're doing now. It can be future looking. I'm going to pull out that book that I purchased that talks about really how to create a LinkedIn account so that you can target the people you want to target. And I'll provide that resource and provide a little bit more guidance in terms of using that media to promote yourself as a professional.
Okay.
Okay. So it'll be for you now, and then what you're going to be when you graduate, you know.
Okay. So current position, kind of what we're doing in our practicum and looking ahead at graduation.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you're actually hoping that will link us into, if we're, okay. Awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Let's pull in some resources and let's polish up our accounts and let's learn how to really use those to promote ourselves, because that's what we should be doing with those to how to use those, the best practices for those. So that'll be the idea behind that. So I'll be posting some information on that. Anything else?
I have one question. It may be a side question. So, with everything going to online, basically virtual and things like that, how do you think that would impact, discrimination as far as, gender, job, even physical discrimination? That's what we see in a lot of, if a person don't look a certain way, they're discriminated against because you can actually see them virtual. How do you think that would impact that?
That's a really interesting question. I have not delved into any literature at this point to determine what we know up to this point in terms of virtual. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think there are going to be some inherent problems and barriers. In one example, even before COVID-19 hit, I actually happened to be out we have a little dollar store in town, and I happened to be out there, and a Latinx lady pushing a stroller with a child, probably 1.5 years old, went there. She wanted to apply for a job, and they said, well, you have to apply online. And because they didn't take applications there in the store, and they referenced her online. Well, you could see the look on her face that more than likely she did not have access to online. And then the girl told her, so, well, you can go to the library and do it. But still, I thought about that because the virtual, the remote, the need for technology, basic skills, as well as having the infrastructure. A lot of people don't have the internet. A lot of people don't have, good internet if they do have it. There's going to be some inherent discrimination there where individuals may have gotten a job previously, but they're not going to be able to get a job now because it's virtual or it's remote. In terms of how it's going to, impact gender from a gender perspective or from racial ethnicity perspective, I honestly don't know. That's very interesting. That would be very interesting to look at.
I had a friend who moved from Texas to Tacoma, and she's incredibly qualified. And so it was a utilities group, Tacoma Utilities, and she had to submit her resume, which she did. So she made round one. She had to submit questions, like they gave her scenarios, and then she had to submit that. And then she made that round, and she's 52. She's younger than I am. Third round was she had to submit a video on how she would handle something. And she did not make the next round. And she and I both thought, well, they saw me. I'm a little older. I mean, we really both said age discrimination immediately. I thought it was interesting that it was a public utilities company. You had to submit a video.
See, that's interesting.
Tacoma, Washington.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because, one thing that has crossed my mind is because now with us being virtual and like in field with the TK20 and everything, or even actually when you apply to the program, we ask that you submit a passport style photo. And that's simply because we want to see we just want to see. We need to make that eye contact, I guess, through a photo or whatever. And it's crossed my mind to think about, well, to the point where now we don't store photos with applications. Right. Because I don't want anybody to ever feel like that we made a decision based upon the photo. So like I said, that's crossed my mind too. So it could, there's some very clear protections when you're in a physical face-to-face type of setting, but those protections may be easier to get around when you're having to submit videos or something like that. And so what if you had enough resources and enough knowledge and you could hire a makeup artist? Seriously, you could hire a makeup artist that could really enhance you You know, when my daughter was young, it was the glamour shots, you know, but that could really enhance you, and you could physically look different than you would on a day-to-day basis. And that's going to give you a leverage up for a job that you may take advantage of in a virtual world, but you wouldn't take advantage of in a physical world.
Or just do a stunt double or something.
That would be interesting. I guess that would be one where they could say you falsified your application. So it really does introduce a whole lot of things we've got to look at. We've got to, redefine what we're looking for in the qualifications and the job descriptions and things like that, so that they can be fair and they can be equitable. But I think there is going to be some inherent discrimination simply because of the virtual aspect of a lot of it. I don't know. It's a whole new world. It's still 2020. It's like, go figure. We're up to our 99th hurricane or something. So, and we got wildfires going. It's still 2020. I think it is going to, I think with the virtual aspect of everything, the laws and the ethics have not caught up with what we've had to do rapidly. I think it'll eventually get there, but it's not caught up with that rapidly. Because we've had to do it so rapidly, and how we protect individuals' confidentiality, how we protect some of those other aspects of discrimination. Yeah, I think it's coming. I think we're going to see the lawsuits come, and oftentimes it's through lawsuits and through the judicial system that laws change and that change happens. But I think it's coming. We just haven't. It's just not caught up to us yet. I hope it's not on my watch. Any other questions about anything?
When's your grant due?
I have to send the letter of intent. The letter of intent is due October 5th. I'm going to send it tomorrow, the draft for it tomorrow, to the consultant. So it's really not much. It's about ready. The actual full proposal, which I think it's like 25 or 30 pages, it is due January 21st, but I have to have it to the consultant by December 18th. They wanted a full month in advance. I've worked on it most of the summer, so I've got most of everything fleshed out. It's just a matter of going to be getting it together and fine-tuning it. I've got my measurements. I've got the population. I've got the program. So it's just now a matter of pulling it all together, writing it and refining it. And praying a whole lot. Then the other thing is, when you think about it, and when you get something like that, man, the work, you think it's a lot of work writing the grant. It's a lot of work carrying those grants out and overseeing those grants and all the reporting that you have to do, not to mention the actual programs that you have to, you're saying you're going to implement and you're saying you're going to do. So yeah, so I'm going to be toiling right along with y'all this semester, writing my own. So we may be chatting about it. You may have to hear about it. All right, is that all for y'all? I will get the lecture for this particular chapter. I'll get it up tomorrow. I promised Rebecca I'd have it up today. And like I said, I got called away and I didn't get it finished. So I will get it up tomorrow so you'll have it. But it's basically what we've talked about tonight. Got it? All right. Y'all have a safe drive back to your bedrooms from the living room. Don't trip over anything, no accidents or anything like that. It's like my, my commute to the office in the morning, I stump my toe or something like that. So, oh, y'all, this is getting old. It is. Yep. It's like being that dog in that shelter and you're not being socialized. And so I'm snapping at everybody that comes by. I need some socialization. maybe we'll get back to it at some point. I just don't think it'll ever be like it was before. We've changed. We've gone down that road. Can't turn around and go back. Got to make it better. Got to make it better. All right. Well, y'all have an amazing rest of the night and rest of the week, okay?
So we'll see you in 2 weeks or next
2
week?
weeks. Yeah, I'm just doing it in 2 weeks, every other week. Every other week. And so we will, 2 weeks we'll meet again, and we'll just be in touch through virtual. And remember, on Wednesday mornings from 7 to 9, I'm on here. So if you need to pop in and ask anything, I'm live for those 2 hours on that part. And I've had a few pop in, and so it's working good. It works good. I have it open on one computer, so I have both of my classes open, and then I can still be working on another computer. And so when you pop in, we can just chat, answer questions or whatever. Teeny came, it worked pretty good. So every Wednesday morning I'm available live for that. All right. And any other time, if y'all need me, just let me know and we can schedule.